Okay. Good morning. So today we will be talking about the managing complexity, right? So far we have discussed why there is a complexity, especially in the software, and so right. So now we will be discussing about how to manage this complexity, right? So that's the recap. So when it comes to software context, the software will be inherently complex due to these four reasons. The complexity of problem domain, difficulty of managing the development process, flexibility possible through software, the problems of characterizing the behavior of discrete systems. Then also we have like discussed about the attributes of the complex system. So whatever complex system in this world will have these 5 attributes. The first one is hierarchical structure, relative primitives, separation of concerns, common patterns, stable intermediate forms, right? So then, so now today is we are going to discuss how to master the complexity or the how to manage the complexity, right? So can you give me some sort of ideas how you are going to manage the complex situation? Any idea? Okay, so like in the most of the cases, if there is a complex scenario, complex situation, or complex system, right? First thing is we have to have a better understanding of the problem or the project, right? So then onwards, so first thing is we have to understand what is the reason of this particular uh, thing is complex, right? So in order to that, we have to decompose, or we have to separate into smaller units, a bigger system, bigger complex system. So then we can have small manageable parts. Then it's easy to manage the complexity. Right, so we will discuss. So the first method is decomposition. Decomposition means we simply break our system into 2 or more smaller parts, right? So when we like telling air when there is let's assume air traffic controlling system. So whenever we heard that this is a very high complex scenario, complex system, right? So and when so that huge complex system, if we decompose into smaller parts, for example, airlifting, plane එක නග්ගන හරි තියෙන system. ඊට පස්සේ package loading, passenger loading, unloading. So likewise, we can simply break down our huge system, right? So when we break down a very big one into smaller parts, so it's easy to visualize. We can see what's happening in that particular smaller part. So since it is easier to visualize, so we can see the part, right? So then it's easy to understand. since it is easy to understand, so it's easy to program and maintain, right? So that's why when it comes to your final year projects, usually supervisors are asking you to develop a work plan. So you have developed some sort of Gantt chart. What you have done is, so when you are going to develop a artificial intelligence based machine learning, blah blah blah, so you might get confused where to. So this is so much complex, I can't understand, I can't program, I'm going to fail, right? But when the supervisors or the expert people guide you to separate small parts, so to break down the entire your final year project, so you can simply, as the first stage, what you are doing, you simply do a literature survey. So from literature survey, you can understand how the things so far gone. Then what you're doing is, so based on that understanding, you will be developing some sort of approach or methodology, or usually we call analysis and design. So likewise, your entire FIV, I mean the final year project, you can break down to smaller parts. Then you can easily visualize, understand, program, and maintain, right? And then each part can be processed independently. For example, if your final year project, you are not doing an individual project, so in that case, right? So let's assume you have like, there is a one thing for hardware device and other one is machine learning module. Let's assume something like that. So the one can develop the hardware component separately, independently, and other one can develop and train the machine learning model, and later they can merge it. So don't need to wait until one part is completed, right? So we can decompose whatever system in or the whatever problem in this field according to two methodologies. So the first one is algorithmic decomposition, and the second is object-oriented decomposition. So this is the real world example. So I have taken a t-shirt production process. So usually, like rather than like, so although it's a t-shirt production process, what the industry is doing is, first thing, a set of people will design. So based on that design, the pattern will be printed to what we call paper, so whatever material. Then that patterns will move to fabrics. So once the fabric is having that pattern, so another set of section of the apparel company will cut that patterns. So once the cutting is done, so the sewing will be started, checking, ironing, packaging, distribution, so on happening. Right? So although t-shirt production process is like some sort of complex situation, so since we have decomposed the case, the problem, it's easy to handle, right? For example, let's assume there is some sort of issue. So clients are complaining about the issue. So let's assume that is about the like something like the design is not comfortable. So in that case, we know we have to inform this issue to the design section, not the checking or the cutting section, right? So that's why that is how the decomposition is make our lives easy. right? So the same applies to the software. So as the real world example, so if we focus on the processes, for example, something like this, right? Design, pattern, fabrication, etc. So these will be algorithmic decomposition, right? So then if we focus on the people who are doing this production process, so in that case, that will be some sort of object-oriented decomposition, right? Because instead of thinking what we call instead of thinking in terms of processes, we think in terms of people. So people act like some sort of object who are doing each and every production process. So the design process will be done by designer, right? So the cutter will be do the cutting, tailor will be doing the sweep, right, etc. So this is the real world example, right? And then so you can see, for example, in the what we call software cases, so algorithmic decomposition basically break down the system into several manageable parts based on the order of the events, right? Always remember, when it comes to the algorithmic decomposition, it is not focusing about the user perspective, but it's based on the order of the events. So that's why the entire production order is there, right? For example, registering a new user. So in that case, so these are the possible algorithmic decomposition, right? So that user get user information and write user information into the database. And when it comes to the get user information module, so we can separate, decompose that one into another two manageable parts. So the display user interface for user information, validate user inputs, etc. Right? So likewise, we can do the algorithmic decomposition. When it comes to the object-oriented decomposition, so basically we break down a system into based on the user perspective. I mean, the person who is the responsible for each and certain part, right? So in this case, so in order to create the objects in the inside of the computer, we will be using classes. So the class is some sort of template of creating an object, right? So I'm not going to much on the double OP concepts or the Java whatever thing. So it's better you like remember those concepts, right? If you don't remember, please go through with your previous lessons. I think then you will not lag behind, right? So now you can see, so we have, so if we do the algorithmic decomposition for registering a new user, so we have 1, 2, 3, nearly 4 parts. When it comes to the what we call object-oriented decomposition, so we have 3 objects. So you can see in the user manager, so it will it can create either a user, and in the user validation will be done, and also persist can be done to the DB manage, right? So that will be this will be the object oriented decomposition. So when it comes to the comparison of algorithmic and object-oriented decomposition, so algorithmic decomposition is mainly focused on the order of event, right? But when it comes to object-oriented decomposition, the entities that play in the domain are focused. It is something like who is going to be the responsible person for this particular part, right? So for complex system, double law decomposition or the object-oriented decomposition is most preferred one, as it is creating the developer and the team to take the advantages of double OP, object-oriented concepts and programming, right? So this is the reasons of double O approach is why double O approach is preferred. So there is the like double O decomposition. It creates small parts of systems which are easier to handle. And so in the usual case scenario, these smaller systems or the smaller parts we can reuse actually. Right? For example, when you are logging, so when it comes to the LMS, right? Or so let's assume something like Facebook, right? So let's assume. So today, yeah. So the Chatusmi. So let's assume you are a normal Facebook user who has liked to the XYZ Facebook page, right? And the Tihara is the Facebook page owner, right? Anyhow, in order to view the page or to manage the page, you have to log into the Facebook. So in that case, both Chatushmi and Tihara will have same single login page, exactly same, right? So rather than having two separate logins, so we can reuse the same login for both cases. So that's why double O decomposition is making our lives easier, right? Okay. So and also double O systems are resilient to change, right? So if you are developing some sort of project, right, and it is having a very long lifespan, for example 15 to 20 years, so double O is preferred as it is very easy when there is a change, right? So it's basically steady to changes, right? So if you go through with legacy companies, for example, CodeGen, Virtusa, and WSO2, and there are so many other like leading companies which are having more than 15 years history. So all these companies have used double OP because although it evolved with over the time, it's easy to handle, right? And also with the double O or the object-oriented concepts, it's very easy to develop large complex systems, right? So you will be learning these double P concepts. I mean, I will do a simple recap, right? So there is the abstraction, encapsulation, hierarchy, etc. So these double O concepts are helping to develop large complex systems. And also double O decomposition, object-oriented decomposition supports to the separation of concern, which is an attribute of a complex system. Yeah. So now we will be just talking about this double OP concepts, right? So there is the abstraction. So in the abstraction, we extract the only necessary detail. So this abstraction is comes from the word abstract, right? So in singular we call something like yuktikaranya. So that's like some sort of confusing word. Anyhow, like, so you have developed, so far you have produced your proposal report, my project proposal. So in this case, in that case, so you have a section called abstract at the very beginning of the content. And do you add detailed methodology information into the abstract? No, you don't. You only extract whatever necessary detail. The same thing is here in the abstraction, right? So you can see this picture, right? So in the left side, we have a very old grandma, and this is a cat. And in the right hand side, we have a vet, right? So the grandma will see the cat as a pet, a fluff ball, right? But when it comes to this vet, right? They will feel this is like a pet, but in the most of the cases, they will look inside of this cat, right? What is the issue? And in that perspective. So the abstraction is something like that. So when you, when there is a case, you will extract only the necessary details, right? So in the lesson, we will tell so many things. So, and in the copy, there will be only necessary details. Something like that. So in the object orientation, a class will be represent a real world entity, and class will represent, or the class will contain only the needed essential details matching to the problem domain. Right? So, yeah. And there is another like very important concept in the double O world, which is hierarchy. So, real world objects will usually have some sort of conceptual hierarchy, although we can't see. So if we like look at into these real world objects, so we can see it, right? So in the double OP programming, so developers can define these hierarchies. So basically these hierarchies will be some sort of relationship between classes, right? So yeah. So this is the example. If something breathes and moves, we say it an animal. So if one of those things that move and breathe also live young and nurse them, we say it mammal. යමක් හුස්ම මොකක් හරි හුස්ම ගන්නවා නම් move වෙනවා නම් අපි කියනවා සතෙක් කියලා. ඔය හුස්ම ගන්න සහ move වෙන එක්කෙනා පොඩි කාලේදී කිරි දීලා පෝෂණය කරනවා නම් අපි ඒකට කියනවා ක්ෂීරපායි කියලා. So that is the second sentence, right? And we know that mammals are kinds of animal. And also we can predict that if we see a mammal, it will all likelihood in breathe and move around. Mammals ලා කියන්නේ සත්ව කොට්ටාශයක් නිසා සත්තුන්ගේ තියෙන ගති ලක්ෂණ ටික mammal ට already එනවා. So that is the usual case, right? So if a mammal barks and wags its tail, we say it as a dog, right? So the hierarchy, we can have two cases. If the hierarchy goes down, it's specialization. If it is going up, it's generalization. So this is that example in a graphical way, right? So implementation of hierarchy, we can implement hierarchy in the double OP using the relationships, especially the inheritance, right? So in the inheritance, we can like specify the either generalization or the specialization hierarchy. So this inheritance will facilitate the developer to code reuse. And so if you remember this is a relationship, so we can easily represent in using the inheritance concept in the double OP, right? So the example is goldfish is a kind of fish. Goldfish කියන්නේ මාළු ජාතිය. Right? So something like that. Right? So do you have any question to be asked? Any unclear points? Okay. So we will move to the next section of our set of slides. So that is basically the principles of the object orientation, right? So you can see as this image. So we have the object, then class. So then there is the inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation, right? So when it comes to object orientation, so it will help the developers and the software project team to modularization, abstraction, hierarchy, encapsulation, and information hiding, and improved maintainability. Right? So we will discuss those concepts, right? So the relationship between object and the classes is something like cookie and the cookie cutter. So you can see this image. So this is the cookie cutter, which is pointed as class, right? And the cutted cookies are objects, right? So the class is something like a cookie cutter. So it can define what is the shape of the object, and the objects are like cookies. So these cookies are some sort of like, they are having the shape of this cookie cutter, right? So it's something like instance of the classes, right? These are the that's why we call the cookie cutter, and the cookie is the most easiest example, right? So when it comes to the characteristics of objects, so we have different characteristics. So the state, behavior, and the identity is the most prominent characteristics of the objects. So when it comes to the state, so the state will be represent the properties and values. For example, when it comes to the dog, so we can have name, color, breed. So when it comes to the bicycle, we can have speed, gear, model, etc. Right? So these are the states. So the behaviors are something like interaction that can be that is doing with other objects or outside of the system. Right? Basically the functions. So when in the Java, we call these as methods. But when it comes to the Python, we call functions. So that is the wording will be depend on the used double O language. Anyhow, behavior is some sort of interaction or a activity. For example, dog can bark or the wag the tail. So the bicycle can change the gear, apply the brake, speeding, riding, stopping, etc. Right? And when it comes to the identity, so it's basically the mechanism that used to differentiate the two objects of the same class. So it's something like your object name, ID, serial number, etc. Right? Okay. So these are the advantages of OOP. So it's ease of modeling, real world in software context. Object-oriented system can be easily upgraded to from small to large scale. It's easy to partition the work in a project based on object. Object-oriented programming offers a new and powerful model for writing computer software. It reduces software maintenance and developing costs. Right? So these are very common things. And also OO is supporting further modularization and decompose. So like since the OOP is not focusing the algorithmic decomposition, but it's focusing on the double object-oriented decomposition. So it means basically it will be do the modularization based on the responsibility, but not the order. Right? So in this case, it's very easy when it comes to very complex systems. If we try to develop a software with the order of the events, that will be a utter mess, right? There are some systems we can't predict the order, right? Actually, that's the main reason this object-oriented behind of the object-oriented reason popping up. අපිට සමහර සිස්ටම් සමහර කියන්නේ 90ක් සිස්ටම්ස් ලෝක 99ක් විතර සිස්ටම්ස් ලෝකේ අපිට ප්‍රෙඩික්ට් කරන්න බෑ ඊළඟ මේ ඉවෙන්ට් එක මොකක්ද කියලා. So based on that reason, so we have to think in terms of another mechanism. So the object oriented concept came, right? So then like we create, when we decompose each and every object, so then we will separately maintain the source codes for each and every double objects, and then we will connect those objects using these hierarchic structures or the inheritance or whatever other applicable cases, right? So that is how this OOP supports for the modularization. And also when it comes to the defining the level of understanding, so the abstraction will help you to the describe the level of understanding, right? So we know abstraction is all about extracting only necessary detail. So in that case, right? So let's assume you are developing a okay, I will take the project of Tihara, right? So Tihara is developing some sort of blockchain for the health patient monitoring data, monitoring system. So in that case, so let's assume Tihara has to store the information of the patient. So in that case, she will extract name, height, some sort of sensor data, blah, blah, blah. But do she need, so Tihara, do you need to extract the information of your target patients about these, their schools, their A-level streams, their degrees? Do you want to store? Huh?
Miss.
Okay, so you know what to extract. So that is the abstraction. So based on your problem domain, you only extract what you need, right? So like you might have this same situation, same case. There are so many things to consider, but actually the point is we only need the necessary parts, especially when you are thinking about developing these ER diagrams, so you might have that experience. බුදු අම්මෝ මේව ලියන්න ගියාම පිස්සු හදනවා. මම මේක දාන්නද මේ attribute එක ඕනේ නැහැ වගේ. මේකත් ඕනේද මම. So that confusion is happening, right? So in that, if there is some sort of confusion is happening, something like that, so we have to apply this abstraction, right? So still when like we have to develop these ER, so I'm also getting confused with the especially when we do not understand the problem domain properly, we got confused of what to be extracted and what not to be extracted. Okay. Yeah. And then we have the hiding unnecessary complexity. So the encapsulation concept will help you to hide the unnecessary complexity, right? And also we can hide the unnecessary complexity from the information hiding also. So by interacting only with an object methods, it means like we only consider about the object method, right? We do not consider the rest of things, right? And so we do not consider about the how these methods have been implemented. So for example, so when you're using some sort of yeah, I think you have like done so many programming. So if we take this SQL select command or Java print command, right? And let's take Java class command or the public static void main command, right? We only make it visible only the object method names, but we are not talking about the how the implementation. Do you know how the Java print command has been implemented? Do you know? No, you don't. You never ever think that way. So that is how the information hiding is done. So if you go to the print inside of the print command, yeah, you will be shocked. Although that is simply the very simple, very basic command of the Java program, but the implementation is very complex, right? Because like they have to call so many hardware devices and so on. So in that case, that is a complex situation, right? But only the programming people, the Java programming people have hide the all unnecessary complexities using the information hiding and only display the object name, sorry, method name. So that is the way, another way of hiding unnecessary complexity, right? So for example, when it comes to your final year project, so let's assume you like developing some sort of anyway, Chatusmi, what is your projects? So let me take an example with your project also.
I'm doing a emotion analyzer with audio player.
Okay, right. So it means basically you listen to an audio stream and try to capture the emotions. Is it?
It also part of my project, but basically it's a web application that used to analyze users emotion and match the audio.
Matching. You are matching the audio.
Yeah, matching the music audio with the users image. Sorry, emotion.
Emotion. So how you going to track the emotion based on camera?
No, with audio and text.
Okay, okay, right. So so if you develop your project and let's assume you have integrated it to Facebook or whatever chat application. So when there is an angry situation, I mean the status are angry, so you can suggest a neutral music, something like that. Okay.
Something like that.
Okay. So in her case, right? So there should be very strong machine learning part. First thing is you have to analyze the what we call emotion. So there are so many things, machine learning, NLP, and those kind of things, right? So if you're since you are using text, so there should be natural language processing also. So anyway, so let's assume she has implemented that system and plugged into the Facebook, and there is a very angry situation in the country, and people are like typing text, right? And they will never ever know how much effort Chatusmi had spent or how much complex is her system, but only they will listen the music, right? So Chatusmi will develop her what we call application in that level, right? So when it comes to a ATM machine, right? So when you like enter the card, so you just only do several button presses. But inside of that, there are so many things. So the information hiding, we can simply do into a very simple button. Or in some cases, like Chatushmi's case, there is no need of, I mean, we can like hide the entire complexity of the project without even having a single button, right? Okay, so that is something like that. I think both you guys are doing a very huge, complex, two different softwares. Anyway, and also Tableau supports defining hierarchies, right? So when it comes to the Python or Java, whatever the object-oriented language, so they support this hierarchy. So that can be done using these extends, inheritance, etc. Right? So yeah. And when it comes to the maintainability, so since we have, although we have a very complex system, right? We only need to, like, when there is an issue or problem happen, we only need to focus to a few modules, not the entire program project. So for example, when it comes to the this emotional music player, right? Sorry for naming that one, right? Don't get activity. I mean that would be like easy to, yeah. Anyway, Chatusmi's project, right? So let's assume when she's testing her what we call system. So let's assume instead of anger emotion, she might detect as confused emotion, right? And play a music track according to that emotion. So Chatushmi will exactly know that I have to go to this section, this module, in order to correct this issue, right? So that is something like that. So when we have small modules or the parts or the components, it's very easy to do so many things, right? So seems like you are doing the final year project. So when I was in UH, what I have done is, so when even I go to a ATM machine and withdraw money, or even I press a button of the remote, so I always try to think in terms of a developer. So that I did some sort of practice of this abstraction concepts. So in that case, it's very easy to see the only necessary things, right? So if you can practice that one into your project, right? So you can easily see the what is only needed thing. Then you can have a lesser codes. Okay. So when it comes to object-oriented thought process, so that is the extended version of the previous talk session, right? Double OP concepts. So since the world is having this object-oriented need with the rising of the complex systems, so people needed a way to do the analysis and design part in terms of object-oriented methods, concepts, right? So we know that we have double OP languages. So those double OP languages will help you to develop your object-oriented program, right? Based on your problem. So before the development, you need to have this analysis and design. So the people thought that they need to invent a separate object-oriented analysis and design concept to make this double object-oriented programming easy. කලින්ම අපිට objects එක අඳුරගෙන ඒක අපේ system එකේ represent කරගන්න පුළුවන් වුණොත් අපිට හරි ලේසි object-oriented language වලින් ඕක ලියන්න. Right? So that's why we have this object-oriented analysis and design. So it's some sort of popular technical approach for analyzing and designing computer-based system by applying double O paradigm, right? So these object-oriented analysis and design are mainly some sort of graphical representation or visual modeling. So we have so many symbols, nice arrowheads and so many other things. Then we can represent many things in a very easy way. So since we are using graphical representation, it will provide a very good better stakeholder communication, and also since the stakeholder communication is having a better understand, so each and every people can understand symbols rather than technical jargons, right? So that will create better product quality, right? So in your next so you have this literature survey in the 31st of August. So once you have completed that one, so make sure you are starting these analysis and design. So when you have this analysis and design well, so then it's very easy to start your coding, right? So if we take this real world scenario, buying a product from a supermarket. So we basically enter to the supermarket, then select, then we will add that products to the card, and we go for the billing section and do the billing, and we will pay and we will get the goods, right? So that is the buying product from a supermarket real world scenario. And so this is the example, right? So when it comes to the programming, so now we know we have this object oriented paradigm, right? And before this object oriented paradigm, in the world we have this procedural paradigm. So the procedural paradigm, as the wording procedural, so its focus on only the processes and its order, something like algorithmic decomposition. So if you are using algorithmic decomposition, so it's better to use this procedural paradigm. So if you use object-oriented decomposition, it's better to use object-oriented paradigm, right? In the object-oriented paradigm, it will focus on the entities involved in the process, right? So this is when it comes to this scenario, this set of images. So these are basically in the procedural paradigm or the algorithmic decomposition, right? So sorry, in the procedural paradigm, so it focuses on the processes and their order. So based on this scenario, first thing is we display the product, select the product, load cart, checkout, unload, calculate total, and make payment. So this is the order, right? The problems of procedural paradigm is less efficiency. So the less efficiency is happening due to the repetition of code, right? And the less flexibility, since the code repetition is there, so it's very hard to manage and modify. So the solution was the object-oriented paradigm. So that's why it's these procedural programs like C are very hard with compared to Java and Python, right? That is the simple reason, because it's very hard to manage and we have to do so many repetition of codes. when it comes to the object-oriented paradigm, so it basically focuses on the entities involved in the process, and we will so first we will understand what are the entities that are involved in the process. So these entities called as objects, and then we will understand attributes of each and every entity, and also we will understand what are the behaviors or the possible actions of these entities in order to accomplish the main task, right? We only focus on our task. So in some cases, the entity can do so many things, but we only consider what we need to add. So basically that would come from the consideration of the entity's responsibility, right? In the object-oriented paradigm, so reason why this concept is all over the world in a very short time, it's because it's have so many advantages. First thing is people are get tired with this procedural paradigm due to its less efficiency and the less flexibility. And then the object-oriented paradigm focus on the real-world objects, right? So so these objects are also appearing in the real world, right? So we have what we call supermarkets, shopping carts, products, and then the cashier, buyer, etc. So we have these real world objects, and since the real world is consist of objects, so it's very easy to convert those objects to the programming world. And then in the real world, we have so many relationships and the interactions. So then these interactions and the relationships of the objects, based on that, we can we can like organize our object based on their interactions and the relationships, right? So when it comes to this customer adds a product into cart, right? So customer will so the customer is one, so in this case customer, rack, product and cart is the objects. So the customer can add the product. So the in the rack, loading product into rack, unload product from rack will happen. When it comes to the product, so get and set product is there. In the cart, either loading or the unloading will be happening, right? This is the simple way. So these are the like something like these are what we call entities, and these are our behaviors of the entities. So something like this slide, this section of this slide, right? And if we like further represent these process with the relationship between these objects or the entities, so this is what's happened. So it's like anyone can understand what is happening. Okay, so the content is over, right? So so you have to do some sort of very little activity. So there is a like scenario. So scenario is at the counter, cashier unload the products from the cart, prepares the bill and presents the total to the customer. So first thing is you have to go through with the scenario and you have to understand what are the objects involved in the scenario and identify the each functionalities of the object. Right? Then you have to draw some sort of very simple diagram based on their based on objects, functionalities, and interaction between the each and every object. So the final will be something similar to this diagram, and not exactly this diagram, but something like this, right? So make sure you are doing that and submit it to me. So if you can do within the given time, so in that case, I can go through with your answers and I can like guide you to do the do a better learning, right? So and there is the most yeah.